started from with these assessments, kind of the history of where we've gone, and then that way you guys can have some background knowledge before moving forward. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, I realized I hadn't turned that on. There we go. All right. Okay. So, as far as kindergarten assessments have gone, historically, we started getting some feedback after Module 1's mid-module that these assessments were taking a really long time. Staffs were having to have interventionists or specials teachers, or even calling in subs so that teachers could just test their scholars on these days. And originally on the pacing calendar, there had only been 2 days allowed for the mid-module and end-of-module assessments for kindergarten. And so really after that round, we recognized that 2 days were not feasible at all. And so I went back through the pacing calendar and kind of clipped and snipped and found where we could combine lessons and what we needed to omit to kind of win back a couple extra days for assessing. But even by the time we got to Module 2 and we were assessing for Module 2, we're still finding that it was a lot for campuses to be doing one-on-one testing for 25 kids. And so that kind of caused us to realize that we needed to look at maybe some potential other options. The first thing we looked at was using Affirm as an online system. They have online tests and other things, and so I spoke with a representative at Affirm to see if they had any options for us for testing our kindergarten scholars. And really, they just said their system just didn't have anything high quality enough. Really, they recommend using their tools from second grade on, and so that wasn't really an option for us as far as online testing. So then we reached out to Great Minds and talked to some of our representatives there as far as what are other districts doing and using, and just to see if they had anything that was like a normed assessment piece that they really recommended as far as paper pencil for kindergarten. And they said they just didn't have any options, and that they were going to follow back up with some of their other larger districts to see what they were doing. But really that kind of showed us that we needed to probably create something in-house, at least for now, trying to find something that would relieve the stress of having to do so much testing. And so that's when I drafted up what you see there, our mid-module assessment for Module 3 as a draft. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to get feedback from you guys on today, and really making sure that what we're creating is high quality and excellence. Some background on that, I really pulled for each of these assessment pieces throughout the topic. What I went through and looked at, it was just like application problems, homework sets, or problem sets that were really the most cumulative of a certain topic or of certain concepts within a topic. And the reason I wanted to have it be something that was I didn't want to be creating things that just looked drastically different than what they were already doing in class, because my fear would be that then teachers would start trying to create all of these worksheets or centers or other things that were aligned to this assessment, and that they would then be derailing off of what they were actually supposed to be doing with Eureka. And so I wanted these concepts and these assessment pieces to be familiar, so that scholars could really show mastery of the content, and not just that they were memorizing something for this specific test. And then really, truly, I really wanted to have something that each topic sometimes has multiple vocabulary words that are introduced, as far as they have multiple, what am I trying to say? Like multiple vocabulary words that would be introduced, like longer than, shorter than. I wanted to have multiple assessment pieces to show those things for y'all. And I'm trying to make sure. Okay. So for each of those things, that's why there are 3 different things to show the content as far as that. And then also we wanted to make sure that like I didn't want there to be only one assessment piece per topic, because then scholars would either be getting a 0 or a 100 on there. And then if there were only 2 assessment pieces, it still would be a 50 or 100. It's either failing or not, or a 0, 50, or 100, but they would automatically be failing. So by having 3, we can kind of see a little bit more of a gradient as far as what scholar mastery is on those assessment pieces. So if you guys are able to, let's see if the attachments are on there. Is everybody able to find these attachments on here? Is anyone able to find them?
Kelly, I'm not seeing them. Where should we be looking?
So I attached them in the document or in the invite at the top, and it is showing, when I pulled up, it's showing attachments on here. But what I can do is I can even just, I can just send you guys an email right now really quick for people who are on here. Let's see. So let me see. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it's showing up on my end and not showing up on your end. So let me pull that up. Okay. So overall thoughts while I'm pulling this up, like when you guys are thinking about assessments for kindergarten, what would be maybe some of the fears and some of like the things that would be exciting about moving from one-on-one, or just general thoughts on switching up the kinder assessments? Is this something that you see a need for on your campuses at this time? Okay, I have everybody's emails on here. Let me just send this. That way you guys can take a minute to look over what I created, and I'll give you guys a minute for that. Let me know if I missed you for some reason on that email. So when you guys say mostly worrying about managing other scholars during these assessments, would that be when we're doing the one-on-one assessments, that's one of the pain points, is just what to do with them during that time? Okay. Yeah, that's definitely like centers. If you don't do math centers, a lot of campuses don't have math centers at this time, and then all of a sudden you're having to have several days where you have 50-minute blocks where kids are just expected to sit and work on worksheets or centers that they've never been introduced before. Yeah, that's definitely been something that campuses that we've seen campuses having a hard time with, and hopefully that would be something by moving to paper pencil we would be alleviating some of that. Yeah, most campuses, unless they just have their block crazy extended, like math centers really just haven't been an option as far as like built-in time. So then to be doing centers during a brand new block or during those assessment times when you're really just you want them to be managed while you're one-on-one testing, it has been difficult, yeah. Yeah, so the 1 to 3, as far as using the grading rubric on a 1 to 3 scale versus using a grading rubric on 1 to 4, was just to be used as a curve for scholars to show mastery. A lot of times the number 4 is like the next push past. Like they've mastered the content, but it's more the articulation. And so the reason we made it out of 3 was so that more scholars, like even scholars who get a 3 on the score, they're still getting full, or 3 on the rubric, they're still getting full credit for that. I'm not sure that I fully answered that as articulately as I should. Hopefully that makes a little more sense. If anything, it would be, if anything, doing it out of 3 versus doing it out of 4 would allow more scholars to show mastery. Yeah, I've seen, so like what Sarah's saying, where one of the things Great Minds said we could do as an option is also assessing after topic instead of, so doing the topic assessment and every time we complete a topic, the other option would be, and so that way you're not doing all 4 topics in one sitting, you're just having some one-off times. It's just a matter of making sure that the pacing still stays on. Is one of the things for norming. Okay, so if you guys have a chance to look at that, what I sent you guys, one of the things we want to consider with potentially rolling out a one-on-one or a paper pencil assessment is just, again, making sure that it's excellent and that it's still going to give us a good measure of what scholar understanding is. So when you look over that, do you see any areas of strength, areas of growth, things you would like to see on that? Or even just important things that you want to consider moving forward if we were to make this shift.
So I like that it says, if you feel that this is not an accurate representation of a particular scholar's content understanding, you can still like test them individually. So if like for some reason you think kids are doing really well and then they come back with this paper test and it's not showing it, you're able to still you're able to get more data where like past and RCAs, if they weren't able to do a paper test, they just failed. So this is really giving both options, but it will also speed up so teachers aren't having to spend like a week on one thing.
Yeah, that would be our goal. Is again, I think one of the hard parts of moving to paper pencil with it being kindergarten is, they are still so concrete, and sometimes doing this pictorial representation of moving to paper pencil can be a hard transition for some kids. And so I think it's really important to note, like, you still have the option to one-on-one test. If you have scholars that can't represent their knowledge on a paper, or you can't see their articulation or their thought process on a piece of paper, you still 100% will have the option of being able to test them one-on-one to really get a good understanding of what they know.
And you could do the test in small groups, right? Like
Yes.
the paper tests.
Yes. Yes, if you want to test in small group, like that's still an option too. There's, again, our idea is we want to get good, like Caitlin just said, we want to get good data for our kids. It's not to set an unreasonable or developmentally inappropriate bar for them. We want to make sure we're just getting efficient data, but also accurate data for our kids. And so that's really the goal of this. Some things to think about. We do have currently most campuses that I spoke with are, because we had our end of module assessment for module 1, and then module 2 was like so fast and came right behind it. One of the things we noted was just that some of the campuses are behind, but on the pacing calendar as it stands right now, our window for mid-module number 3 opens next Friday. And so what we need to think about is that enough time for us to turn this around for our campuses to make sure that they are able to, is that enough forewarning for us to be able to say by mid-module 2, we can have this paper pencil test out for campuses to use. And so that's something to consider as well. So one of the things, as far as like action steps going forward, my current action plan that I have, as long as this is something that, again, feedback is always helpful. My current action plan, it will mean that I need to adjust some of the assessments on Aware to match. And so thinking about if we offered on there, them being able to say, these are kids like the rubric-based test, if you so choose for your campus to continue using a rubric versus the pencil paper-based test on Aware. And so providing those options for you guys, but then also that will mean on my workflow coming up, like I want to make sure that you guys have these assessments in your hand in a timely manner, that it's not persistently a week or 2 weeks before the window opens, but that we're able to get them out to you guys in a timely manner. And so that's kind of my action steps right now, is pacing out that workflow and making sure that I have dates and deadlines for you guys as far as when you can be expecting these assessments to come out, and moving forward from there.
Real quick, Kelly, do you care if I add on?
No, not at all.
Okay, not add on, but are there any strong feelings that we shouldn't do this? Are there any objections that we shouldn't move to this way?
Hey, this is Christina and Julie at North Hills.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hi. I guess my concern is that how wordy it is. And I see that each section, there's 7 minutes allotted for each section, and I think that might be a little ambitious.
Okay.
Because it's kind of intense with some of them. Like, they have to understand many things in order to answer the question. They have to understand that this is a representation of string. And it's not just listening to see, like on some of them, there's like the one with the flowers, they're having to understand like the English part of it, but also that, okay, what I'm really being asked to do is draw 2 flowers that are longer than the first 2. And it's just wordy, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. And I know Eureka tends to be a wordy curriculum just in general, but I can see that being an issue, especially for our ELLs.
Absolutely. And so I think one of those things, again, the language being used here is mirroring what is in Eureka, like as far as like multi-step or understanding, certain vocabulary words, all of that is derived from Eureka. But I think it's important to note also, like, if for certain scholars this is too wordy or too much as far as ELL, they are still going to be able to be assessed individually. Like, you can still choose to assess those scholars one-on-one.
Hey Kelly, just to add on, I think the 7 minutes is also like, that is what we're guessing, so teachers have an idea of about how much time they should be able to move through this.
Mhm.
However, it's not like a CA where after 7 minutes they must move on.
No.
This is just so they can get an idea of what that looks like. But through, like, the teacher should obviously be aggressive monitoring up and seeing how, like, when they should move on to the next problem. So if for some reason a classroom needs to take 10 minutes on something, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and I agree. Just thinking, there's 4 sections, and then developmentally, how long are they able to maintain focus?
Mm-hmm.
So, is it okay to break this up into
Yes.
Yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
days or?
Yes, and if you're thinking of still using small groups, if you're doing, let's say you want to get through like 2 parts with your small groups, that's still what the scholars would, the teachers still would have the problem of making sure kids have other things to do. However, if you're worried about, like, I think small groups would make it go quicker in that group, and then you could break up so like one group assessing, group B assessing, group C, and then they do the next topic at a later time.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to break it up, again, just like the mid-modules and other things like Great Mind recommends, like, or says that you can do, like, you can break up, okay, we just completed topic A. We're going to do this almost like a topic quiz. We're going to do this 1 10-minute section today to assess this piece if sitting for 30 minutes, 40 minutes feels too long. And I think the reason I put timestamps on there, and again, it may not, like you're saying, may be ambitious. The reason I put timestamps is similarly to Mondo assessments. If we're giving the directions and repeating the directions again and then giving them a time frame, it just keeps teachers and scholars from getting to that frustration point of that kid is still sitting there 5 minutes and all of my other kids are getting squirrely and they're getting antsy and I'm trying to wait for this one kid to write their answer on this test. We just want to not get to that frustration point. And so the timestamps are kind of like Mondo. If they're not completing it in a timely manner at the end of the day, like about 2 minutes or about 1 to 3 minutes for each question, then they're probably not able to complete that task, and we don't want 24 other scholars waiting on one scholar. So I think that was the this was my brain. The rationale for putting those timestamps on there really was just to say we don't want this test to end up being an hour or 45 minutes because the teacher's just waiting for one scholar to show mastery on something, and just if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think the thing I would stress to teachers is that, like, using this as one option, because ultimately we want our kids, we want to be able to get accurate data that's age appropriate, right? So by doing the CAs, those weren't always accurate data. But we also don't want it to be a huge stressor to teachers and then be off by like a week or so by the end of the year because we're taking so long on getting that data. So I think stressing just like we want to make sure our testing that we're providing for scholars is age appropriate, but also giving us a really good reflection of where scholars are at.
So, guys, are you saying that this is an option for schools? They can use this or the Eureka, or you're saying we need to make a decision today which one they're using?
Sorry, can you say that again?
I'm asking, like, are you saying that they can opt into this or opt into using the Eureka assessment? Or are we deciding today which assessment we want them to use?
Right now, at this time, we originally, and Kenna, you can either dispute or back up this, but really we're thinking options in the sense of because some campuses, you know, it is like if they are able to do it and manage it, they want that data for one-on-one testing, and so we don't I'm not sure what campuses are loving it, but if there are campuses out there, we still want them to have that option. And so right now, at this time, it's an opt-in or opt-out was originally what we're thinking. Kenna, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're getting this feedback a lot from y'all. So thank you for coming, giving us feedback, and then opting into this. We appreciate it. But I think we really just want to make sure that we were listening to the feedback and trying to do something around that feedback. So in terms of next steps, if there's teachers that are really passionate about doing individual testing and are able to keep on track and not extend, let them have at it. But I think this will help teachers stay on track and still get the data that they need.
Mm-hmm. And Rachel, I saw your question as far as capacity. It is one of the key vocabulary words for the unit, which is why it's in there so much. But yeah, capacity, how much it can hold. So yeah, they use that a lot as far as one of the foundational vocabulary. Same. Awesome. Well, it is 2:00, and so really, if you guys have extra thoughts and things as you're looking through this and thinking about kind of what we're going to do, and Kenna and I will be drafting out messaging and adding clarity to that. But if you guys have other questions or feedback as we're going, please let us know. I'll be working on drafting out a pacing calendar, like I said, as far as when you guys can expect to see these optional module assessments coming out for y'all. All right. Any other closing thoughts or questions?
I just want to say thanks for everyone for joining in. We really appreciate it. We like being able to get feedback before we make decisions. Mm-hmm. So thank you to all that took the time to come and join us.
Yes, seriously, thank you. We really, really appreciate it. All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you guys for coming.